Imagine it's 1945. World War II is raging, but for most Americans, the fighting is something happening oceans away. The continental United States feels safe, untouchable. But what if I told you that wasn't true? What if I told you that an enemy weapon, silent and almost invisible, was already drifting across the skies, landing in forests, fields, and farmlands from Alaska to Mexico? This is the story of an attack so bizarre, so audacious, that the US government decided the best defense was to pretend it never happened. This is the story of the fugō, Japan's transcontinental balloon bombs. It sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? Thousands of bombs carried by paper balloons floating 30,000 feet above the Earth on a river of air. But this was the reality of a desperate and ingenious plan hatched by Japan in the final years of the war. Faced with a losing battle, Japanese scientists looked for a way to strike back directly at the American homeland. Their answer wasn't a fleet of ships or a squadron of planes. It was paper, konnyaku paste, and hydrogen. The weapon was codenamed fugō, or fire balloon. The concept was deceptively simple. Japan had recently discovered a powerful high-altitude wind current that blew eastward across the Pacific Ocean, what we now call the jet stream. They theorized that if they could launch a balloon into this current, it could ride the wind like a highway in the sky, all the way to North America. The engineering, however, was genius. These weren't just simple party balloons. Each one was massive, about 33 feet in diameter, meticulously crafted from hundreds of pieces of mulberry paper glued together with a paste made from a root vegetable. They were filled with highly flammable hydrogen gas. But the truly clever part was the altitude control system. Dangling beneath each balloon was a chandelier-like rig, holding about 30 sandbags and a small payload of incendiary or anti-personnel bombs. An onboard altimeter would trigger the release of a sandbag if the balloon dropped too low, causing it to rise back up. If it rose too high, a valve would vent some hydrogen. After about 3 days, once all the sandbags were gone, a final mechanism would release the bombs and then light a fuse to destroy the balloon itself, erasing the evidence. Between late 1944 and early 1945, Japan launched over 9,300 of these silent weapons into the sky. The goal was twofold. First, the incendiary bombs were meant to ignite massive forest fires across the Pacific Northwest, creating chaos, draining resources, and terrorizing the population. Second, they hoped to prove that the American mainland was vulnerable, striking a psychological blow. For the soldiers and schoolgirls tasked with launching them from the beaches of Japan, it was a shot in the dark. They would fill a balloon, let it go, and simply hope the winds would carry it to its target thousands of miles away. They had no idea if any of them were actually working. Back in America, strange things started happening. A rancher in Montana found a weird canvas contraption in a field. Debris washed up on the shores of California. A power line in Washington state was short-circuited, temporarily cutting power to the Hanford production facility, the very plant producing plutonium for the atomic bomb project. The military quickly realized what was happening. They were under attack. Fragments of Japanese newspapers used in the balloon's construction confirmed their origin. FBI and military teams were scrambled across the western states to investigate hundreds of sightings and landings. But you probably never heard about this. Why? Because the US government initiated one of the most successful censorship campaigns of the war. The Office of Censorship issued a strict directive to all newspapers and radio stations: do not report on the balloon bombs. The logic was simple and brilliant. Japan had no way of knowing if their plan was successful. If the American media reported on explosions, fires, or even just sightings, it would be a clear signal to Japan that the fugō weapons were hitting their targets. This confirmation could have triggered a massive escalation, perhaps even the use of biological agents on future balloons, a terrifying possibility the US was desperate to avoid. By enforcing total silence, America could deny Japan any intelligence. The plan worked. The Japanese, receiving no news of their attack's success, concluded the campaign was a failure and shut it down in the spring of 1945. The silence, however, came at a tragic cost. On May 5, 1945, in the woods near Bly, Oregon, a minister named Archie Mitchell and his pregnant wife, Elsie, took 5 children from their Sunday school class on a picnic. While Archie parked the car, Elsie and the children discovered a strange object on the forest floor, one of the Japanese balloons. As they gathered around it, curious, it exploded. Elsie Mitchell and all 5 children were killed instantly. They became the only known fatalities from enemy action on the continental U.S. during the entire war. After this tragedy, the government had to break its silence. They issued a public warning, explaining the danger, but carefully framing it to minimize panic and provide as little information to the enemy as possible. But for the most part, the secret held until after the war ended. Today, the legacy of the fugō balloons is a scattered one. For decades, it remained a little-known footnote in history, but the evidence is still out there. Every now and then, a hiker or a logger in the remote wilderness of the American West stumbles upon a remnant, a rusted piece of the bomb mechanism, a fragment of the altimeter. These artifacts are the physical proof of a secret war fought in our own backyard. They remind us that history is filled with incredible, untold stories, hidden right beneath our feet, or in this case, floating silently above our heads. The story of the fugō is a testament to wartime ingenuity, the power of information, and the quiet sacrifices made on the home front. It's a forgotten chapter of World War II that deserves to be remembered. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, hit that like button and subscribe for more dives into the hidden corners of history. See you next time.